you get to digitalocation and your first Emmy win?
When I was in Seattle, John had he was closing his shop and released me because I was really unhappy. I just wanted more. Like when my mind started getting around motion design. Oh, and coincidentally too, Seven came out during that period, and I was like, that's it, man. I want to do main title design. I didn't even know what it was before Seven, because back then it was just the most boring, like.
It was just titles.
Yeah, that's all it was, and that everyone's like, yay, title design. But when it was taken to that level, by a really cutting edge director, David Fincher, he just wanted to kill it out there with something really interesting. Meet Kyle and everyone in Imaginary Forces doing that. It was just like a bomb exploded. You remember that?
I do.
And everyone's like, I want to do Seven. But what it really meant to a designer back then was that the title design world became so much more kinetic. Like there was this, it was such an emotional piece that you really understood it for that. Like you said, there's a lot of power in this messaging and all this imagery, and this is amazing. And so, go back to work at the annual report place. I'm like, I'm bored, man. I got to figure this out. So I went into a television broadcast and worked at Como 4 News in Seattle for a year. I wanted to shoot myself. It was like the most mindless, like, I worked at can I talk, do you want to talk about this?
You can talk about whatever you want.
Do you know does anyone know what a Quantel paint box is? Oh my God.
It's $1 million machine, right?
Finally, we had Photoshop 3 when I left Van Dyke, where it was the first Photoshop where you had layers. Oh my gosh, layers. I was working with Kosa After Effects 2.0, the most awesome animation program all of a sudden in the world. And because you had all these, no one had keyframes and Beziers on the. So I go from Photoshop, where you could do layers, to you're on a paint box, and your way of making a layer was you copy a frame to what's called a frame store, which suspends it in RAM, and then you do some painting, and you do this A and B between these two layers that you have. I had to produce sometimes a graphic, full-page graphic, on air in 20 seconds. 20 seconds. It's like this countdown, and you're just furiously, and then they're like, okay, post, and then you hit the thing, and then it goes, literally, like, from the time you hit that button, it goes right on air, and if you don't make it, you'll be out of a job. And so there again, like, I had to learn to get really fast at these kinds of things. All of this translates into what we do now. Like, so anyways, got out of that, I went to a post house, and I did this one piece. This is pre 6 Feet Under. This is what got Paul's attention eventually. I had some old 8mm film on my family, and I started putting that in edit, and it was basically just clips of my brother riding his bike and me trying to ride a bike and falling over, and even there was a clip of my dad throwing a football. It was like this just nice thing, and I put it to some nice music, and it was a very emotional piece. Like, everyone I would show it to, it's like they got emotional. So I thought, okay, that's something. And then I made a bunch of, like, the flavor of the week kind of things, and just put together in an actual reel. And by the way, by then I really became good at making reels, and I did packaging, the whole deal. Like, it was a VHS tape. Anyways, I sent it to LA. I'm like, there's no way. And what I found out was, all of your guys' shops that were thriving then were just like, now, of course, you still are.
No, then.
But
now.
It was a different deal then. Like, this was all new stuff, man. And they called me immediately, like Garson, Kyle, not Kyle himself, Imaginary Forces called me. I worked with Adam Bloom and Karen Fong a little bit. I got an interview with Pittard. I got an interview with Fuel. Belief. Do you remember Belief? Are they anyways, I was blown away. I'm like, why do these people care? I just learned, though, that they just need animators. Like, they're so hot, and everyone's got so much work that they just needed animators. So I was like, well, what do I do with this? I live in Marysville, Washington. It's 40 miles north of, and I'm trying to raise a family. What do I do now? And I mean, I should have thought about that, I guess, before I sent the reel, but I'm like, honey, I really want to do this. Like, are you guys cool with this? Can I go? And I drove my little Geo Metro down to LA, stayed with a producer at Imaginary Forces for, I think, about 2 months until I got just homesick. I loved all of it. It was so exciting, but I was like, I just got to go home. Like, this isn't working out.
So you're freelancing here for
Yeah,
like a month?
I freelanced at IF for 2 months.
When your family's back in
Yeah,
Washington?
yeah. I said, you know what, I got to go home, and Digital Kitchen's the only place. I tried there before when I had my little, let me get back real quickly to the reel part. So polishing my reel was a good thing to do, because when I was interviewed by Adam that first day, he goes, let me show you something. He takes me in the back room, and there was a stack of VCRs like this. And people were taking, like, you know, graphic tape with a Sharpie and like putting their name on it and their phone number and stuff like that. And there was mine, just beautiful compared to all that stuff. And I didn't realize how much mine was different until that had occurred. So I learned a real lesson with that. But anyways.
Well, people here look of the age that they know what we're talking about. But there was a time and place when your VHS packaging mattered if it was going to be opened or not. So what he's talking about here is, you know, half-inch VHS. People would just slap a label and send it out. He sounds like designed something and packaged it and put imagery and typography, and it was cool. And those stood out. And back in the day, we would have a collection of these things. And then VHS, sometimes 3/4-inch tape, then became DVD, and now it becomes nothing. Just becomes a link. Right, so just for you guys to have some context. Yeah. Okay, give me the Digital Kitchen.
Okay, so needed to get home. I'll just try it. I found, I think it was, what was the job board back then? It was, I think MoGraph.
MoGraph, yeah. MoGraph.
And so I saw this little blurb by a Trish Rosenthal, I think, who was their headhunter back then, looking for a designer. So here I am in LA, sending my stuff from Imaginary Forces to them. I get a call. And I think they might have thought that I was an LA designer wanting work.
Because you had an LA package?
Yeah, well, no, like, I was at Imaginary Forces, like that was huge.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But I had the same reel. That was the funny part. Like, all of a sudden there's this perception. But anyways, Paul and I hit it off real well. We did a lot of great things together. We did this one, we finally got into entertainment with our first title was The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Spottiswoode directed that. Got some recognition for that, and then 6 Feet Under came around. When we did 6 Feet Under, I saw all these guys doing these really great ideas, and I thought, well, here's something. Like, I found some photos of the mortician and all that. Wouldn't that be cool if, like, he had this story? But I was applying those same principles of annual report design. And in annual report design, you have an iconic image, you have a statement of some kind or a message, and then you have the financials. But I understood the power of a dynamic, you know, icon of an image, and that's what I did with that, which, unbeknownst to me, became sort of the kind of true detective of that period for a while, you know. Yeah. I mean, but that, you know, I just thought I was just doing design. I didn't even like it when we finished it. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're up for an Emmy. I'm like, what are you talking about? But that changed everything. The company didn't just grow, it just exploded. But that kind of changed it for them. They grew a lot. And like anywhere else, it's just time to go. You know, you do your thing, and you're wondering what else is there, so.
Do you guys have any other questions, or should I just keep going?
Any length of time in a creative field, you're going to get to that place where you have too much work, not enough creative energy, and everybody's breathing down your back. What do you do to push yourself through that? Or what did you do? Maybe you're now at a place where you're able to figure that out better. I'm not there yet. So I'm trying to learn how you get through that and how you give the client what they deserve and also kind of nurture that creativity for yourself.
Kyle gave me some great advice one day. I was freaking out on this presentation. I had way too much going on one day. And I'm like, I said, we worked very well together. We were good friends, still are. But I said, Kyle, I don't know what to do, man. Like, he goes, you do what everyone does. You get up, you suit up, and you just do your job. Like, and it's funny. Like, we put too much expectation on ourselves. And we create this grand idea of the way it's supposed to go when really it's just a grind. Like, you grind it out until I've developed this sort of word picture in my head. I call it riding the beast. And you get on the beast and it's just tearing you up, but eventually it's going to run out of energy. Like anything else, it only has so much, physical capital until it just goes, I can't. It's time to stop. We need to stop now. And that's what you do. You're like a rodeo star. You just jump on and hang on and do the best you can. And what I've learned working that way is that clients are not stupid. Like, they know what they're giving you, and they know when they're screwing up too. And they won't tell you oftentimes, I screwed up and that's why you have to work so hard right now. But they really respect anyone who is willing to really stick it out and even fail just for the purpose of helping them to get to that end. And that was a huge one for me. When I finally quit taking it personal, and when I finally started giving myself permission to screw some things up and not do all of the things I wanted to do, I would get through a project, and then magically I would have 4 days left over to do all those things I finally wanted to do. So it's almost like a spiritual journey. It's like you learn to let go of your ego and your pride and your, this. Like, you just let it go because it's in service of something, greater than that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Give yourself permission to screw up. I'm writing. Locking that in there.
Yeah. Now, a friend of mine criticized. I say it's okay to fail. I say that a lot, but I don't mean that in that it's okay to just kind of check out and it's cool. And no, man, you give it your all. But we're human, and we're going to screw up. If we do that, let's try not to. If we do that, it's okay. Like, there's some whole shot somewhere where we could figure that out. I mean, let's be frank. Some jobs, they just go south, and they're the kind of jobs you don't want to talk about, and no one in the shop wants to ever talk about. But you should be thankful that you had that job, because that contrast makes you understand how good this one job is. Like, thank God I don't have that job. You're like, yeah.
That's like you drive out to the desert and you just bury that body and
Yes.
just go back, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to skip over a lot of your professional stuff because I think it's been well documented and we've talked about it. You've talked about it in lectures, and I want to get to some other kind of personal stuff and maybe dig into areas that maybe you haven't talked about before. So as far as I know it, you're at DK, the accolades, the jobs, you're finding your groove, you're doing the thing that you love, and then you make your way down to LA, you're working at Prologue, and you're doing your thing, and now you're on your own with Prodigal Films, right?
Prodigal Pictures.
Prodigal Pictures.
Yeah. So I shifted all that back into, this is where I started. Like, I'm a family man. I'm responsible to them first, and all this stuff comes afterward. And so for me, Prodigal is a real gift because I have a studio at home now, and the kids just exited our home. We had a great time before they did because I was undoing all that and getting back on track. And now Vicki and I are together and we see each other all the time. We're business partners. So I have teams of people, but most of them are remote. When things get really crazy, we rent a space and we do it that way. That's what works for me. But it's a life I would have never imagined. I'm very happy right now.
Okay. let's see here. I have my rapid fire questions, but maybe this is another opportunity for you guys to jump in. Anybody have? All right, you got the. People are on it, man. Okay, go ahead. Name and serial number. No, I'm just kidding. Name and question, please.
All right, my name's Jason. I'm in a position right now where I have a little bit more control to assert the creative team. Actually, this is partially your responsibility because I introduced Core into our company. But I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of like interesting team dynamics, and like I love what you said about that incubation period, and then like after that, it's like, you know, what's next. So I'm wondering if, I mean, this can go for both of you. What is your philosophy for working with teams?
Great question, Jason.
For me, the most important one is lead from the front, not the rear. The reason why that's critical is you have to earn respect with your team. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good product. You're not. I mean, maybe you will if you offer a lot of incentives of some, I don't know. At least in my experience, leading from the front, if everyone's going late, you go late with them. You know, if there's a problem, you got to be willing to buy them snacks or something if they're staying up all night. You know, it's little things like that that really matter to people. But more importantly, I've also really understood the critical benefit of knowing at least the capabilities of software and the methods and approaches of the tools that they're using, so that when I talk to them, even though I suck at 3D, I could still help a 3D artist get through his shader to a place where that's what we're after, because I know enough of the language where we can talk one-on-one that way. But if anyone in a creative management thing is saying stupid things like, it's just not there yet, or I'll know it when I see it, or just keep going, you know, without really offering precise, clear direction, and especially without offering them help to get to that end point, then you're not a good creative manager. You should be doing something else. You could even take the brute force approach and put pressure on people. I've done all these things. Put pressure on people and breathe down their neck and just be mean, and you'll get what you want, but they're going to hate you when you're done, and they're not going to want to work with you. They're going to talk to everybody about you. So it's a really great practice to see yourself as that poor dude who's sitting in that chair that's got to do your stuff, and work with them side by side, not you're here and they're there. Really work with them shoulder to shoulder.
Here's my stab at it, and I appreciate you giving the answer first. It gives me time to collect my thoughts here. One, in terms of team dynamics, I think if you're the leader, the manager, I think you need to know the strengths of your team. I think when we talk about art direction and creative direction, there's part art and part science to that. You don't just grab, typically, the person who excels at modeling all of a sudden then to do character animation. You have to be able to look at that person and see the things that they might not even see. Yeah. So that's one. The other thing is, I think you need to create space for them to work through the problem and not sit there and try to control the entire process. Be open to sharing the idea. This is our idea. I don't care if it's my idea. I just want the best idea to emerge. Now, I know a lot of people say that, but the best idea, coincidentally, is always their idea. I don't like that. I like to actually be surprised by the team and not to know exactly where it's going to end up. I have an idea. There's a direction we head in, but let's share it together. And I think when people have ownership over the creation of the thing itself, that's what motivates them. That's what gets their creative juices flowing. Yeah. Then you need to get in when needed. This is what Danny's talking about, and be, at some points, very prescriptive and be super detailed and precise about the direction. Make it rad is not an art direction comment. Yeah. That's it. And believe it or not, that is how some people lead.
It's insecure too.
Right?
It's by the CEO of my company has this phrase, make it sizzle.
Yeah. Ah, yeah. Gosh, leave. Why are you there?
So I got two more things for you. cut your losses sometimes. Sometimes you spend all your energy. This is the Pareto principle where 80% of the results come from 20% of your efforts. So there are rock stars working for you, working with you. And there's a couple of people who just, they can't figure it out. And you got to give it that try. And then after a while, you just got to cut your losses.
Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, create an environment where it's safe to fail. For people to try things and to encourage that and celebrate that. That failure is part of growing, experimenting, and learning. And that's it.
I love what you said. I wish I had said, because I fully agree with you on that too, about understanding the strength. If you're a good manager, if you know your people well enough to really understand what their strengths are. That's how I ran all the projects that I've done. I'm a huge fan too of segmenting certain tasks to certain people. I see everything in layers. It's like this guy is a type animator. This guy could do great logos. This guy is great shooting film. And also to your point, when someone takes ownership, that's great. I love it sometimes when someone kicks my butt and makes my idea so much better than what I could have made it, to the point where it's his idea now, and it looks amazing, and then we work together and solve the thing, and it's so much better. It's very important.
So I have to touch on this, and then I got my rapid fire question. I want to talk about education.
Yeah.
I think you have a very strong point of view of that.
I do.
I want you guys to think about this. I'm not targeting any school, just at higher education, just in general. Sometimes it's a total racket. You can think of schools almost as loan officers. They have a product and a promise, and they just help you apply for the loan. You just don't realize that's what's happening. And all they want you to do is get out the gate so they can bring more people in. So they apply loans, because we talk about this. And I've said, think about the money you're going to spend going to school, the $200,000 that you're going to be out. What could you do with that money, and how would you educate yourself? Would you make the same decisions? But the thing that they push back is, Chris, how do we get that money? We can't get that money unless we go to school. It's not like I have $200,000 sitting around. And that is a problem. I don't have an answer for that. I just want to bring that part up. And it is very sad and tragic that there's going to be a whole lot of people out in the world that have six-figure debt that they will never be able to pay down. Never, ever. And that's a tragedy to me. So now, throwing it back to you, what do we do about this?
I really like what you're doing with this stuff, with Futur and all. I started watching your videos, and I was really impressed on all the subjects you were hitting. This is stuff when I was trying to figure this out, I would have died to know that stuff. That's all I wanted to know. And you and a lot of people are doing that right now. That's how you solve this problem. Thank God for the internet. I mean, it's a great equalizer. But, it also equalizes the playing field too. So it's up to all of us to make sure that we're really up on all of this information and stuff that's going on. We only have so much time in a day. There is a beauty, though, to a group of people that are sitting together and they're sharing information and they're learning from each. That's critical. So maybe the model of the future is a hybrid of that. I guess you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
That's the model of the future, I think. But like Chris said, I mean, these suits that are selling these giant, that's not happening anymore. Your days are numbered. Your days are numbered. It's like
We're coming for you.
Totally. Like everyone gets it now. Like this is not working anymore. But also there's a beauty, there's a wonderful thing that's happening too, where there are so many things to do now. Like even you could still for free have a very economic model for you could make a really great piece for a design conference or something with no money and get recognized and end up shooting a commercial. Stuff like that can happen now. That's amazing to me.
I know you traveled through to many places to speak and jobs and all that. What's the coolest place you've ever been?
Prague. I love Prague.
Well, that was fast.
Hong Kong, too. I really dug Hong Kong. I want to go to Tokyo. I haven't seen that yet.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Okay. The dumbest thing you've ever done and not regret?
Dumbest thing I've ever done and not regret? Probably the way I did my journey, I think, probably. I did a lot of dumb things. But I want to learn everything myself, and I did everything wrong, and I learned everything the hard way, but I gained so much experience from that.
Great. Do you prefer broadcast or feature film?
Feature film. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, it depends what kind of broadcast you're talking about. If you're talking about Netflix and that stuff's killer right now. It's so good, so good.
So those lines are blurring. That's a lovely
They
thing.
are. It's all film.
Yeah. Favorite adult beverage?
Adult beverage. You mean like with A?
No, anything. I don't know, whatever. You can say chocolate milk if you want.
If I could do it, I would drink Coke all day, but I definitely can't do that. I would be 300 pounds. I'd probably have diabetes.
Okay, there goes the Coke
Especially the
sponsorship.
McDonald's. Have you noticed the secret? Like McDonald's success in selling those Cokes is the diameter of their straw, right? Why doesn't anyone else do that?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it's thick.
Yeah, and for some reason, it's like this perfect, it's like scientists figure this thing out.
It just shoots right down your throat.
Yeah, it makes it taste so good.
You guys will confirm that later on. That's fine. Okay, here we go. We're about over halfway through these questions. Guilty pleasure.
Oh man, I love cheese. Like, dude. I mean, to me, heaven is like a cheese store. And no, I'm just kidding. I don't know why. I'm German Polish. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I love cheese.
It's like Wallace and Gromit.
I think
Cheese,
so.
Gromit.
I think so.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect that. A vice you'd like to change.
There's a few of them, but probably obsessing over things a little bit too much.
Okay, now the last two that I have become a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
Heroes, living, dead, real, imaginary, whatever. Who do you look up to?
For me, Winston Churchill is one of them. Because he persevered. He was a perseverer. If you read a lot of his things that went on, all of the quotes that came out of what went on, they're amazing. They're great for business. I love Solomon. The Proverbs of Solomon are amazing to me. There's so much in there with life and business and fairness and guys like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. I know that today that's kind of a cliche, but studying these titans is so educational because all they want to do is just change something that they hate. That's all they want to do. And they figure it out. So.
Great. Last one. What are you afraid of?
Age. I mean, we live in a very young world, or a world that perceives youth as having the answer, when older people generally do, because we've been there, done that. Most guys in the film industry are in their 50s and 60s that I've worked with. They're fantastic. You would never know the age of a lot of the guys that I've worked with that do amazing work, and they do it in one shot. I directed Morgan Freeman one time. He came in and he didn't even read the script when he came on set. And I'm like, crap, how's this going to go? And he stood there and just kind of went over it a few times and go, okay, I'm ready. And I've never done a shoot where every take the first time is perfect. I was amazed. It was like magic. And I gained a deep respect from working with a lot of directors. The same thing. It's like those are my heroes. All those people who have persevered and done all of that, and they don't care what people think. They know what they're supposed to be doing in life, and they do it at that level. I have a deep respect for those people.
Because you said this, I have to ask one more question: what is failure for Danny Yount?
The biggest concern I have is that I'll do a project, and at the end of it, I will have missed that opportunity to have focused on the one thing that could have made it really special. Have you ever done that, where you've done a job and you look and you're like, why didn't I think of it that way? Like, that would have been awesome. Like, or you got caught up in something that just didn't matter and it affected other things, and you're like, why did I worry about that so much? Like, you worry about finances. You're like, why? It all worked out. Like, why did I burn all of this time worrying and affecting my creative abilities when if I would have just relaxed, I would have been at the end of this with just so many nice things, stuff like that. Human stuff. I think we all have those kinds of things.
Let's do this. Maybe we have room for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. We'll wrap up the night.
I'm Daniel. I was just wondering, I guess the last 3 or 4 reels you've come out with, I really like. Did you cut all those?
Oh, great question.
I always cut my reels, yeah.
Great.
Thank you. I did one in 2010 that I got a lot of attention. It was weird. It was like on Stash magazine. Yeah. And it was what was really, I had this part where it dropped, the music dropped, and then these logos started coming in. And what I didn't realize is playing it like I was at Off or something. It was some really big event. And everyone thought it was over. And and then it started again. And then it just made it so much. I'm not trying to like get all puffed up on my own. When we're tapped into the thing that we're meant to do, and we're able to connect with sort of the source of that inspiration, it's almost like it takes us outside of ourselves. We end the thing and we go, how did I do that? Like, where did that come from? Do you know what I mean? It's like you found this perfect channel of water and you don't even know how, but you're just like, and you're humbled by it. You're just like, where did this come from?
I think you're talking about the flow state.
There's that, dumb expression, the right time at the right place, but it very much is that way. But more so, it's how all the stars kind of align with the client really wanting something great and you really wanting something great. And there's just that perfect storm where it all comes together. That's probably like every 5th project, if we're lucky, that we do. It doesn't, the ones that you think are going to be great don't always turn out that way. And the ones you think are going to suck turn out great. We never know. I think what's important is we just get up and we do our absolute best, and we only focus on the things that matter. So.
All right, Greg, you want to bring us home, or go ahead, you do it, and then we'll see if there's go ahead.
You mentioned some ageism in the industry, and as someone who likes to be very hands-on with your work, how do you battle and manage that moving forward with all this emerging technology and the young people?
Can I answer for you?
Yeah.
And then you give the real answer, because he's going to read that manual.
What?
He's going to, whatever it is. It doesn't. There's a pattern here. HyperCard, electric image. It doesn't really matter. He'll read it before the kids read it.
That's part of it, but I'm guessing you're also hinting at the next thing is we get older, we run out of energy. When I was in my early 40s, I was still doing at least one all-nighter a week, and it was tearing me up, man. All of a sudden, it took me 2 weeks to recover from that one-nighter. Some of you, I've seen some smiles here. Some people know what I'm talking about, and you realize how, the youth thing. I mean, but if I go back to the youth too, I think like I did a lot of really wasteful things. Like I would get all fired up and put on my headphones and listen to metal or whatever, and I would just, when like 20% of what I was doing mattered, made the cut, like I'm at that. So that the answer to your question is, the older you get, the more experience you get, you know what to avoid so much more. And you know exactly what pair of shoes that suits it have. There's no question, and you know how to make those shoes. That's a kind of a goofy analogy, but you know how to play classical, you could do jazz, you could do all these things, and you know exactly what the right fit is for that project. And if you can't do it, you know the people that can. And that's the beauty of getting more experience, is you really learn how to overcome your physical weaknesses, which don't really matter anymore because you have learned the art of constructing teams where the work is just better anyways, even if it was a room of, you know what I mean? Like, I know a few guys who take a lot of pride in the fact that they could do, work for, the longest day I ever had was 34 hours in a chair working on a project. But where's the nobility in that? Like, you're ruining your body, like you're exhausted for, no matter what age you are, you still got to recover from those kind of hours. And you're just, it's pride. Like you don't want to give in. Like you don't want to delegate. You think you're awesome, and I would encourage everyone, whatever age group you're at, if you're stuck in that world that you think you could pull all of this off by yourself all the time, every time, and no one's as smart as you and no one's as creative as you, let that go, man. Let it go. And if you are that, share it with someone else. Get them involved and let them learn some things so they can be inspired. It'll help you for sure. So.
All right, let's do one last one. We're done. Yeah.
So this is something you touched on earlier. You said that, in previous generations, maybe it was easier to be noticed, and that nowadays you see a lot of really good work out there in many creative fields. So I think nowadays it takes a lot more than just pure artistic skill to be successful. So what are some of those elements that you think make someone stand out and find their own success, especially in younger generations?
If you don't learn how to do work that's emotional, you will not be noticed. We all can think of a movie or a scene or something that actually changed our thinking about life. Like, I don't know about, that's the power of film, right? Like, it's that emotional. And graphic design absolutely can be that emotional, too. I saw this one piece just recently done. It was for a design conference, and it's this great 3D artist, but he took the route of doing extremely simple shapes that just came together and did interesting things, and it just cut. It was just one cut after another of these different things. And some of them would return in a more complex form, but they were the same thing that he did before. But the culmination of all of it, at the end I went, I get it. It's all about exploration. And it's about collaboration, two people like coming together and working on something. Even that simple, I was blown away. I was like, this is a beautiful piece. It resonated with me. So that's critical. Now, to get there, though, is difficult sometimes. Sometimes you really have to involve, all the time, really. If you know something special, get advice. And some of the best advice I've gotten is from people who aren't designers. I'll ask my wife. I'll ask my 10-year-old son has enlightened me on things I would have never thought of. Ask everybody, like, what do they, form your own kind of trusted group of people that are like a focus group. That's really critical, too.
I just want to thank you for agreeing to do this, but even more so for being so open and transparent, and just, I think our community would be stronger if people took note of what you're doing here and being very vulnerable. Because one of the things that I think we come up against a lot is that when you've made a name for yourself and you've done the things that you've done, and the accolades and the magazines and the speaking things, it also becomes like you become this like superhuman person. And for you to share your path, this route that I think a lot of us can find our own thread into your story. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.
You bet. I mean, I know that some of these things might harm me, but I really don't care, because I'm like you. I'm tired of everybody protecting their shell. Like, we got to stop that stuff. Especially today, man. Things are nuts. People are acting crazy. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen a time like this? This is insane. We got to come together. We really do. So, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you guys.